It is so great to see everyone here this morning. Today, the title of our sermon is What You Leave Behind. And here's where we're going with this sermon. It is Mother's Day this morning, so we have to talk about mothers. And we are having 3 baby or child dedications this morning. 3 families who have said, we want to publicly declare that we want to raise our child in the way of Jesus. And as a congregation, as a community, a family, we want to support each of these families on that journey. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to pledge our support for those journeys that these families are on. Talk a bit about Mother's Day. Talk a bit about raising children, child dedications, and we'll talk about it in the context of what it means for us as a community, because the truth is, it's not just about one person or one family, it's about all of us in this together. That's why we are here, that's why we gather together on a regular basis, so that no one feels alone on their journey. We'll begin by talking about mothers of the Bible. One mother in particular, and I have wanted to give this sermon for many, many years. My seminary professor preaching class mentioned once that he gave this sermon. All of our mouths dropped at the fact that he would speak about this mother on Mother's Day. But I remember thinking that was a gutsy move. And it has always stood out to me, and I feel like 2025 is the year to talk about this mother and what it means for us today. And so we will talk together about Herodias, who happened to be King Herod's wife. King Herod, maybe we could say one of the villains of the Bible, not looked upon fondly. You could probably guess how his wife is viewed in the Bible. Let's go and read the story and see what we can unpack together. Herod himself had given orders to have John, speaking about John the Baptist. John the Baptist precedes Jesus. He's going around baptizing people, and he is pointing people toward Jesus. Well, the officials, the religious leaders, and the Roman officials do not like John because they are afraid that he could possibly create havoc, he could cause a riot. So everyone at the top wants to silence John. Herod, the governor of the land at this time, he is able to put John the Baptist into prison, thinking if we put him in jail, if we lock him up, we will silence him and his message. So he had him bound, put him in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his wife, but before it was his wife, it was his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. Yeah, the story's not looking so great so far. John had been saying to Herod, hey, listen, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. Like, you can't go and do this. You could see why John got under people's skin. He said the very thing that everyone was thinking. So Herodias, the wife of Herod, who used to be his brother's wife, she nursed a grudge against John for publicly declaring this. And she wanted to kill John. But she was not able to because Herod feared John and he protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. And I love this line. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled. He didn't understand him, but he liked to listen to him. That's probably how many of you feel about me. You're very puzzled, but you like to listen to me. I get it. I know. Now, finally, the opportune time came. On his birthday, Herod gave a banquet for himself, and he invited all the high rollers, the high officials, military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee. Now, when the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. He had a little bit of entertainment. He was joyful. All the guests were joyful. And so the king said to his daughter, ask me for anything that you want, and I'll give it to you. You want a pony? I'll give it to you. You want a unicorn? I'll go and find one. I'll give it to you. Whatever it is you want, I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I will give you, up to half my kingdom. Half of what I have, I will offer it to you if that's what you so desire. So tell me now, what is it that you want? Well, what does this daughter do? She goes out and asks her mother, what shall I ask for? Now, I did a little research this week about what it is that mothers really want for Mother's Day. And I got into the weeds on this one in the Reddit thread. I was there looking at it 2 days straight, an hour each day, not that long. It's very interesting, though, to see what mothers want. Actually, no one in this thread put flowers. No one put a card. Interesting. And as I was walking into the theater, I saw on the TV over there by the bar area some of the worst gifts that you can give for Mother's Day. So in case you haven't given any gifts yet, I'm going to let you know the good ones, but I'll also let you know one of the bad ones that I saw on the screen, cleaning supplies. Do not give your mother cleaning supplies. And if you have, please return them and go buy one of these gifts. Just trying to save you the hassle and the heartache. What do mothers really want? They want sleep. All right, round of applause from the mothers if you agree with this one. Just leave me alone. Let me stay in bed. I was at a party last night for Reese. I was talking to one of the dads. What are you going to do for Mother's Day? He said, my wife wants to go out to an early dinner about 3 o'clock, and then she just wants to be put to bed for the rest of the night. Sleep. All right, here's another thing that mothers really want for Mother's Day. And if you're a mother, take notes. Let your family know because there's still time. A clean house. Round of applause for this one. Anyone else? You're like, yes. All right, I see Gina's like, yep. My kids are right next to me. Let me stare them down while I clap. All right, here we go. Got something else. Meals prepared. Yes, all right. Got a few supporters for that one. Okay, I think I have 2 more here. A family activity. Let's go to the zoo. Let's go to a restaurant. Something to do together. And then here's one. I had never heard this before. This is like going to the top right here. A hotel room for the weekend. By yourself. Yes. A spa. I was reading this one thread, so one comment happened to be, every single year, my husband books me an Airbnb just for me. I leave on a Friday, I come back on Sunday. And then another commenter said, my husband does that for me too, books a spot at the hotel, and I just hang out at the hotel all by myself for the weekend. So these are the things that mothers really want for Mother's Day. Now let's think about our story of King Herod, his daughter, and then his daughter going and asking Herodias, hey, what is it that I should ask for? She could have asked for anything. She could have had the best of the best. King Herod, he had some loot. He had means at his disposal. He could have given this daughter and then his wife, her mother, basically anything that their hearts desired. What is this mother's answer? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. I don't know where that falls, whether that's in the Reddit thread of what mothers really want or if that's gifts not to give on Mother's Day. But here is the very thing that the mother asks her daughter to ask Herod for. It continues. At once, the girl hurried into the king with the request, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. The king was greatly distressed. Because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he did not want to refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. The man went, beheaded John in prison, and brought back his head on a platter. He presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. Pleasant Mother's Day message. We start with this idea that children are a gift. Children are a gift. With any gift that you receive, you want to respect the gift. If someone offers you a gift today, unless if it's cleaning supplies, but if someone offers you a gift, whether it's on a special holiday, if it's for your birthday, There's something meaningful attached to that gift. Someone thought of you. They went out and purchased something. They did something for you as a way to honor and show their appreciation for you. So a gift, along with this idea, there's this sacred responsibility to look after that which you have been given. We treat the things that we receive from others, hopefully we respect them and treat them well. Well, a child is a gift that is given to us. And as a parent, or as a mother specifically, as a parent, it is a sacred responsibility to care for that gift. You, as a mother, as a parent, you're shaping a human. There's a living being that you are responsible for shaping the direction that their life is heading in. And the children that we have been gifted with, that's the next generation who ultimately will be responsible for shaping the world that we live in. And my guess is every single one of you here this morning, there's a particular version of the world that you desire to live in. There's a particular version of the world that you want to see come to fruition. You're probably here this morning because you want to see more love spread throughout the world. You're here week after week because you want to know how to set aside some of the messiness that we all carry within us so that we can move forward ourselves, our family, and the world into greater wholeness. So as a parent, you're deeply responsible for shaping this child and how they will create and shape the world that we're all inhabiting. This story acts as a stark warning. What happens when the world that the mother is creating doesn't really go well? What happens when the mother, with this sacred responsibility to look after her child, decides to pass on her bitterness, her unhealth, her unforgiveness, her grudges that she's holding? You could ask for anything. Half the kingdom, I'll give it to you. What do you want? I want revenge on the man who spoke out against me. She could have asked for a family outing. She could have asked for jewelry. She could have asked to go to the best restaurant in Jerusalem. She could have asked to go on some exotic trip somewhere around the world. Yet what does she ask for? Bitterness and revenge. And she includes her daughter in that request. She includes her daughter in that world that she is shaping for herself. Which the warning then is, be mindful of what you are passing on to the next generation. A couple questions for us to reflect on. What was Herodias teaching her daughter about the best way to live? If you're a mother here this morning, if you're a parent this morning, if you're a human here this morning, we'll get to that in a second because this pertains to all of us. What are we teaching others about the best way to live? Another question. What values? And these are questions for us all to reflect on. There's something really important about being intentional about inspecting what it is that we're passing on. Because if we're not intentional, we have no idea sometimes. We're oblivious to how we're living and how we're showing up in the world. So what values was Herodias instilling in her daughter? What values are we instilling on those that we are responsible for? Another question. What kind of world was Herodias passing on to her daughter? What was the world that her life was shaping, that her daughter was now inhabiting? We talked about the responsibility of a mother, and obviously Herodias is front and center in this story. Then we also have the responsibility of a parent, King Herod. Yes, he took an oath, but sometimes, like this happens all the time with Reese, we'll tell him something, And then we're like, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry. It's just not going to work out. But you promised. And then we have to have a conversation about how, okay, yes, we did promise this, but there were some unforeseen circumstances that arose. And we have to shift things a little bit. So let's have a conversation about how there's unmet expectations, but how can we somehow move forward together? Herod could have pulled his daughter aside as a good parent responsible for his daughter and for her life and where her life was heading. He could have pulled her aside and said, hey, you know, that's probably not the best ask. There's probably a couple other things. But he doesn't do this. So Herod is just as responsible for this tragedy. And then, as I mentioned, the responsibility of a human. Think about all the others that were there in attendance. All the others who saw this event take place. You have the daughter herself, who when she heard her mother could have said, Mom, no, let's not make this about you. Let's ask for something else. I know that's what you're asking for, but she could have put her hand out and said, Mom, no. This is your thing that you need to go work through. I'm not going to be involved in this. What about all the other party guests? The leading men of Galilee. Some of the men there surely would have had an affinity for John. They would have appreciated him. What about the executioner? For him to stand up to power and say, I know you're in charge, but this just doesn't feel right. The king's officials who knew what was happening, yet they refused to stand up to the one in charge. So yes, there's the responsibility of a mother, the responsibility of a parent, of a father, but there's the responsibility of all of us together as we shape the children and the world that they will end up creating and inhabiting. We are all in this together, and we're all leaving a legacy behind. Whether you're a parent or if you're not a parent, every single one of us is leaving a legacy behind by the way in which we are living our lives. Now, let's shift from Mother's Day to a baby dedication, because it's all interwoven. So, with the baby dedication, two things. One, parents are publicly showing their intention to raise their child as a follower of Jesus. We talked about passing on to our kids. As parents, families come forward and they say, we want to raise our child in the way of Jesus, they are saying, we want our child to create a world that embodies the values that Jesus taught and embodied in his life. We believe in the way of Jesus and the world that he was teaching us to create, and we want to intentionally teach our kids what it is to live and move in this kind of world. So that's the first thing parents are doing when they come forward here in a few moments in order to publicly make a declaration. And then us as a church family, because every single one of you, if you're here this morning, you are involved in this journey. The church family shows our support in helping parents on the journey, because you can't do it alone. And we all need help. We all need support. We need wisdom of each of us. We need the prayers of others. We need people to come alongside us in this journey. Now, there's this ancient charge to parents that I think is highly applicable to all of you who shall be bringing your children forward here in a few moments, but I also think it's applicable to every single one of us, whether you are a parent or not. And it is from the book of Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Hear, O Israel. And this is early on in the life of Israel as they are forming a nation for the very first time. And here is the foundation that they are to form their identity on. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments, Moses speaking, that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. When I read that, I think about branding of horses. Impress them, brand them on your children, tattoo them on their forearm. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. First piece of advice, these commandments are to be on your heart. Raises the question, well, what commandments are we talking about? The Old Testament commandments, like, oh, I can't boil the goat in milk and do all these really weird things. I can't mix fabric. Are those the commandments we're talking about? Jesus summed up the commandments this way. Here are the commandments that are to be on each and every one of your hearts. Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind. Did we not just read this in Deuteronomy? Jesus is referring back to this passage in Deuteronomy. This is the first, the greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law, all the commandments, if you want to sum it up in one thing, they hang on these two commandments. Love God, love your neighbor. So the question, what commandments are to be on your heart? To love. Easy, right? We all got that? We all do that every single day? We try. Exactly. That's why we need this place, because, yeah, it's hard and it's messy. It's not easy. We need to keep learning and moving and growing and figuring out how to do it within our context. So the commandments are to be on your heart. Love is to be on your heart. Love is to be a part of you. We can maybe say love is to be your entire essence. And we're all learning how to do that. That's what Jesus came to teach and to lead us into this world, this way of being. Y'all have heard this expression, wear your heart on your sleeve, where others know exactly how you're feeling. Oh, that person, she just wears her heart on her sleeve. You know when she's angry. You know when she's sad, when she's upset. You're to wear your heart on your sleeve. You are to be a person who exhibits love as often as you can. I would say all the time, but I don't want to create any guilt here. As often as you can, you are to exhibit and embody the way of love for your children and for others to see. So this way of training, teaching, guiding, shaping others, it starts with you and your life. You can't tell someone to do something that you aren't doing yourself. So it starts here with you. Our lives are displaying the values that we truly hold. What you embody is more important than what you believe or say. I ran across this idea this week. I was listening to one of my past coaches. He did this keynote presentation. He passed it on to me. I listened to it. Absolutely brilliant. And what he said at the end of his presentation, people do what people see. People do what your kids will do what they see you doing. You can say you believe whatever you want. You can say certain things are the values that you hold, but if you are not embodying those beliefs and those values, your kids will not embody them themselves. People do what people see. You ever see those videos on YouTube or TikTok or whatever your social media thing happens to be of toddlers who are just cursing like a sailor? Where did they learn that from? People do what people see. You are to wear love on your heart. If you want your children to be children who exhibit love for all people, compassion and mercy, it starts with you and your life, how you treat and how you talk to others. And then we're told, impress them on your children. Another way to translate this, teach diligently. Be active and intentional about what you pass on. Carve out time to talk about the things that you value. Carve out time wherever, whenever it happens to be. Carve out time to talk about the things that you want to pass on to the next generation. Because if you're not, they will receive those values from another place. And my guess is you do not want your children receiving values from Instagram. Just a thought. Be active and intentional. Talk about them. I love this right here. Talk about these values, these commandments. Talk about love, the way of love, when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. So when are you to teach this way of living? At all times. Every single moment is a teaching moment. You want to show an active interest. Yesterday, I mentioned I took Reese to a birthday party last night. We were driving to the birthday party, and I had this classic album on the radio that I just wanted to turn the volume up, drive down the Sawmill, and just enjoy the beautiful weather with the windows down like I was 16 again with my son in the back. But I had this thought, you should talk about Harlem Grown. And you should talk about what we experienced and what you saw there. So I turned the music down. I left the windows down, though, still. And we had this beautiful conversation for 10 minutes about how life is different here in Westchester than life in Harlem, and how his environment that he's being raised in is different than the environment that the families and the people who live in Harlem are being raised in. And we were able to talk about what that means for development and how we have access to certain things that others around the world do not have access to. It was a beautiful teaching moment. I could have just turned the radio up and went on, but there was this thought within, like, no, not now. There's a teaching moment. You just experienced something together. Let's talk about what that means for you and the type of world that I hope he will create and begin to shape with his life. So when do you talk about the way of love? Every opportunity you have. And then tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. In other words, make these commandments visible. Maybe you have pictures around the house. Maybe you have quotes that you put up around the house. One of the things that I love, and I'm guilty of this, but people talk about how if you don't want to make the television the thing in the house, then hide it in a cabinet somewhere instead of front and center in the living room. Because when you have it front and center in the living room, you're drawing all your attention to that box and you're saying, this is what matters the most. Well, we have our TV in the front and center of the living room. I feel guilty every time I walk in there. Oh, I'm convicted. Find ways to make these commandments visible so that you're not just talking about them, but you're actually showing them. So every time something, your children and yourself, because we all need these reminders, they're reminded about the best way to live. These are our values. This is what it means to be a Stradling. This is what it means for us together as a family. These are the values that we hold. These are the values that we aspire to live into. So a bit about Mother's Day, a warning for mothers, parents, all of us. What are we passing on? And then a way to pass on the best of who you are and the best of who you aspire to be, the best that Jesus sees in you. And as a follower of Jesus, this is to be an intentional part of your life where you inspect your values, you inspect what you're embodying, how you're living, so that you can faithfully pass on to your kids and to all those who are a witness to your life about the type of world that your life is shaping and creating.